Hello, welcome back. We're going to talk about our last chapter in the semester, that is chapter 11, food safety. Okay, so we talked about so many things throughout the semester. We started with first seven chapters that were designated to give you information about biological pathogens as well as chemicals that corrupt our environment. Okay, so you have all the necessary information in your hands. Now, from chapter 9, we started with the application of environmental health. Okay, so how this knowledge is helpful to understand the environmental regulations that we have in order to protect our environment. So we covered air quality, we covered water quality, and the last chapter that we're going to talk about is food. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the pathogens that commonly cause foodborne outbreaks, the situation under which these outbreaks happens. First of all, what is an outbreak? That we're going to look at, uh, and what are the food safety practices that will help us to protect the quality of our food. So, with this understanding, let's dive in, shall we? So, what is a foodborne outbreak? This question I will ask. Okay, so the foodborne outbreak is when more than two people get sick from the same cause. That is referred as an outbreak. When more than two people eat the same food, whether that's a cafeteria, restaurant, uh, for school catering services, or even at home, even at a party at home. So if when people get sick uh, from eating the same food, that's referred as an outbreak. Okay, so how this is different than food poisoning? Food poisoning is a situation. It's not an outbreak. Food poisoning is a sporadic event. Okay, sporadic is is a secluded event where um, an individual who does not maintain the quality of the food and gets sick. For example, if someone prepares the food at home and puts on the counter and plans on eating that food later, but forgets and gets back on the eating the food several hours after the food was kept on the counter, and in that time the food is ruined, which means that toxins are formed in the food, and those toxins hamper the quality of the food. And when the person eats that food, the person gets sick. That's food poisoning. Okay, and result is almost similar. Okay, so uh, person who either has foodborne outbreak or food poisoning, depending on what type of pathogen it is, depending on what type of chemicals that are formed in the food, and that person got exposed to. Usually, there is a gastrointestinal illnesses that we're going to talk about. All right, so uh, this thing. These two things are important: food poisoning and foodborne outbreak. The third one is the how the government tracks the foodborne illnesses. Okay, there is a mechanism. Okay, I suggest you read the PowerPoint when I'm talking about that in the video. Okay, so the third slide is about a pyramid. Take a look at that pyramid. So you see that at the bottom there are different type of examinations, such as so. Let's start with the bottom layer. Um, so people get exposed to the pathogens or chemicals from the food. Okay, so some of them get sick. Okay, so some of them get sick, and there is a population survey is conducted. So the government randomly sends out a survey to general population and asks about the population. Here means those who are the customers at the restaurant, and they are being asked questions. Okay, so some of them report that yes, they were sick or they are sick or something like that. Okay, so that's a population survey. And then now some of the people who are really sick, they seek medical care. Okay, so those who are really sick, they go to the doctor. Those who are not very sick, they think that they will be all right, and they don't go to the doctor even they are sick. That is referred as a subclinical illnesses. Okay, but that's a different layer. They were never reported. Some are perfectly normal, so they are not reported either. But those who get a little bit more type of more severe type of illnesses, they go and seek care. So some of them are hospitalized, some of them just receive outpatient level treatment, that is antibiotics or other type of supportive pills or IV line or whatever treatment that they get, and they are out from that medical facility. So the doctor, what he or she does is that make a diagnosis, gastrointestinal illnesses, and if the illnesses seems a little bit severe, in most cases, if it's a hospitalization type case, or if it's outpatient level case, but is going to will be monitored for some time, then they will order clinical laboratory investigation. Clinical investigation is already done, but a lab investigation. So they order the tests. They do not order tests for all the patients, but only those they think that have severe type of illnesses or sort of suspicious of some harmful bacterial type infections such as streptococcus, clostridium, so on and so forth, the E. coli, or so forth. So they order the tests, okay, from the people who came to them for treatment. Okay, now it's the ball is this is a physician survey which is happening at a health facility. Now there's another layer is a lab investigations. Those who the tests that are ordered, so many of them turn negative for pathogens, and some are turn positive in the lab investigation, and that's a lab survey. Now those which are those which are positive samples, the results, especially if they are very harmful type of pathogens, that data will be sent to the government, and the government is going to figure out which are the most harmful, most dangerous type of pathogens, and keeps a register of it. So if you see that at each step the amount of people are being reduced and reduced and reduced. So at the bottom we start with so many people who have illness, and at the end very few people who have illness with a very very severe type of very very harmful type of bacteria. Which is a good thing, because not many people get sick because of the harmful bacteria. So this particular tracking is referred as a food net. Okay, so government is doing all these things. So physicians are recording these results, and the physician diagnosis reports are sent to the government. Lab investigation reports are being sent to the government. Then the population survey reports are sent to the government. So with all these three layers, we are getting very timely information about this outbreak. That's FoodNet. It's a fantastic system that we have. Okay, so that's the tracking. Now, tell me what type of law is this? So is it a surveillance law? Is it standard setting law? Is it a control oriented measure? Or is it licensing law? Which one? Take a minute. Yes, it's a surveillance law. Okay, those who think otherwise, it's wrong. As I said, it's a tracking. Tracking means surveillance. So that's surveillance law and risk management. If you don't know about this, refer to chapter 4. We have risk management laws, and read about that. All right, and watch a video on chapter 4. All right, so what is the most common type of food item involved in foodborne outbreaks? Okay, so you need to figure out the perishability of the food item. Okay, vegetables, fruits, they are very much perishable. Meat products are perishable, but it takes a little bit more time compared to the fruits and vegetables, because they have cellulose. That is fine. Their cellulose is tough, but still they don't have much protection against environmental contaminants as opposed to the meat products comparatively. Okay, so for meat products it takes a little bit of time. The proteins that are protective against some of the proteins that are in meat, that are protective against the ruining of the meat. But so you see that in the chart, the vegetables are ruined very easily. Their preservative is high. Symptoms. So if you have foodborne illnesses, which means that the route of exposure is mouth, so it's ingestion. When you have ingestion, the pathogen is entering in your body by mouth, okay, or chemical is entering by mouth, gets into your gastrointestinal system, and because of that, your first point, the first point whether these things will damage is gastrointestinal system, and that is indicated by the symptoms such as vomiting, diarrhea, flatulence, bloating of abdomen, and so on and so forth. Of course, cramps as well because of dehydration. So these are the symptoms. Besides restaurants, what are the most outbreaks are? Okay, so restaurants are not the only places where outbreaks are reported. Other public places such as schools, I mean all the places that you can imagine where food is served to multiple people, there is a risk that these outbreaks will happen, but most of the outbreaks are reported at restaurant facilities, and very few outbreaks were reported in other facilities, and many outbreaks are not reported at all. Okay, so that is a situation that we need to look at. Now there are what are the top cause of the foodborne illness? Okay, that we need to find out is what is the top cause of a foodborne illness. So that top cause is whether that is the whether the top cause is improper cooling, or whether, so what improper cooling means, okay, in order to have optimal food safety, temperature is a number one criteria that we look for. Okay, how the food remains safe? When it's set at proper temperature. If it's cold storage, which means you don't want to plan to use of raw food for a very long time, then put it in the freezer, right? What you do is basically you put in an extreme cold environment so that the no microbes can survive in that and into that environment, and food remains safe. So it's protected against microbial contamination. Also, because it's the vitamins and proteins and everything, food remains in icy conditions. Food remains intact. It doesn't get broken down, and because of that, its quality remains safe. So toxins are not formed. So it remains safe. That's cooling. So if this temperature is not maintained well, and it starts and the food starts thawing, that its temperature starts increasing, where its temperature is supposed to be very cold, that's improper cooling, and that's going to start. It's going to lose its cover. Okay, inadequate reheating. So for the hot food, so that's cooling. For the hot food, so at cooking temperatures, extremely high temperatures, so most bacteria, viruses will be gone, will die. But once the food is not kept very well, meaning the temperature for hot food is not kept well and becomes slightly colder, there is a chance that the bacteria can grow into it, because no longer high temperatures, so they can survive in a little slightly lower temperatures. So if you don't use proper hot holding temperatures, then there is a chance that the microbial contamination can happen and food starts getting broken down. Okay, so when you see the chart, you will find that improper cooling was the number one cause. Because why? In most cases, the food spends maximum amount of time. I'm talking about a raw food. Uh, it spends maximum amount of time in cold storage. Okay, and the hot food is comparatively um, is eaten up very quickly. Okay, so when you compare the amount of time food remains remains in a particular situation, chances the risk is higher of something wrong happening. So because of that, improper cooling was found to be a major cause of foodborne illnesses. All right, so another there are other things that you need to know about um, when we talk about the uh, okay. So there are rules of food safety. Okay, uh, rules of food safety are the following: um, clean, washing hands, hand washing, in order to break down the oral fecal cycle. It prevents person to person transmission of uh, microbes. Separation, so that's cross prevention of cross contamination, using separate pots and pans for separate things, so that you don't ruin one food item with another food item. Which means if one food item is having contamination, you do not want to contaminate other food items. So uh, reduce that contamination as much as possible. Isolate that contaminated food if it's possible. Third is cooking temperature. We talked about that. Sufficiently high temperatures so that deactivation of microbes, and the chill that we talked about. So storage, proper storage. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the salmonella infection. Okay, so salmonella infection is where salmonella is the most common bacteria that can cause foodborne illnesses. Okay, usually, and salmonella is can affect any food item. So that is, it doesn't spare anything. So it's very common, and usually the gastrointestinal illnesses that happens, and then it's a bacteria. It's a bacteria, so it can be easily treated with an antibiotics. Okay. The second bacteria is Clostridium botulinum. As I said, Clostridium botulinum is a very dangerous type of pathogen. It can cause. It's a very potent. It releases very potent neurotoxin, which can cause instant paralysis. It can cause confusion, delirium, all sorts of neurological problems, and the chances of death are pretty high if it's not treated well. Okay, so that is also a response to the antibiotics. The third one is a Clostridium perfringens. Before understanding that, you need to understand that our intestines have colonies of bacteria. Okay, normal people also, everybody, animals also in the intestines there are also bacteria. Our intestines also have bacteria, but they are good bacteria. They're helpful. What they do is basically a very important job of holding of water. Okay, they prevent dehydration. Okay, so they keep you rehydrated. Okay, so rehydration. Okay, so what happens is that they're bad cousins, the bad bacteria. There's infection, they attack good bacteria. There's a fight, good bacteria die. They replace the good bacteria, and then the ability of holding water is gone, and because of that, you have diarrhea. Okay, of course, another thing is that uh, the body wants to get rid of the pathogens, so that's why it's tried to uh, get it by diarrhea. It's another cause, but major cause is this: the water holding capacity is gone because of good bacteria are gone. Okay, so Clostridium perfringens is a normal resident of our intestines, but when they the bad ones they get inside the body, then they replace the good ones, and then there is infection, GI illnesses. Fortunately, it's not very severe. Within 2 or 3 days, person will be fine. So Clostridium perfringens likes intestines. So in sausages, where intestinal parts are used, and there's Clostridium perfringens are found where the pigs are not kept very well, they're kept in dirty conditions or whatever. So basically, the Clostridium perfringens like dirt, and if the animals are not kept very well, they are in their intestines, the bad ones they grow, and when they're butchered, people get infected from that and things like that. So okay, so that's Clostridium perfringens. The fourth one is the E. coli. E. coli, we heard about this many times. The dangerous variety of that 0157 H70157 can cause a bloody diarrhea, ulcerative colitis, or bleeding colitis. Okay, so it can cause this bleeding, bloody stools. So that's the most problematic factor with that. E. coli, the friendly E. coli are also normal residents in our gut, and it's the same phenomena. The bad ones replace the good ones, and then they cause a problem. E. coli is also a gram-negative organism and respond very well to the antibiotics. Okay, same illnesses, E. coli. The harmless ones or the moderate level ones doesn't cause much illness, but the bad ones can cause ulcer, in the bleeding. So after that, there is so we are done with the bacteria. Then the viruses. There are a few viruses that we need to look at. HAB, hepatitis A virus, HAB, which is basically jaundice that we have. Usual jaundice is like runs for 2 weeks. There's not much problem. I mean, of course, for those 2 weeks are like hell. A person becomes like yellowish, and sclera is yellow, everything's yellow, and cannot eat properly, reduction of weight, and it's a tough situation. Fortunately, hepatitis A recovers by itself, and it's a viral disease, so virus leaves the body and person is fine. But the hepatitis B is bad, but it's fortunately it's not foodborne illness. Hepatitis B happens through blood transfusion. Hepatitis A happens through the it's a foodborne illnesses. Usually happens person to person contamination. So if one person is not washing hands and touching the food items and things like that, and so that person can transfer the infection to his co-workers or even to its customers. So that's the thing. There is a vaccine available for that, for HAB. So most people in restaurant business, they get this vaccine and they can get protection. Okay, so hepatitis A, norovirus. Norovirus usually happens in contaminated ships. I mean, contained, and it spreads in contained environments. So like cruise ships. So when people are having vacation and the ship goes to different destinations, if people go out to a particular destination of the coast, and they buy something, whatever, and they eat some street food or something, they get sick, they come onto the on board, and they can make everybody sick in no time. Even a little bit of tiny illness, and our entire population on the ship can be infected. It is that fast and spread because it's a contained environment. So norovirus likes this contained environment, and there is a more infection spreads very rapidly. Okay, so that's norovirus. Fortunately, within 1 or 2 days, the person will be fine. It's only mild illness. Only thing is that the vacation will be ruined. So that's norovirus. Now there are some other pathogens such as prions. Prions are not a virus. Prions is not a bacteria. Prions is not a parasite. But they're basically like creatures, undead creatures that are so have some bacteria-like features, some protozoa-like features. Okay, so they can cause a disease called mad cow disease. You might aware of that as you live in Central Valley, for its farming community. So mad cow disease is where there is a picture of a CT scan they can look at in the PowerPoint. What happens is that the prions they affects the brain of the cow and sort of like make a spongiform type brain, which means they make hole to the cow. So they eat the cow, the brain tissue of the cow. So the some of the areas are sort of like hollow in the brain. So so in other words, the brain looks like a sponge. So that's referred as spongiform bovine encephalopathy. Okay, which is referred as mad cow disease. What is going to happen when you have holes in the brain? You're not going to survive. So that's what happened. Cow dies very, very, very soon. Now the human variant of that. So if that prion changes the genetic code, it can transfer that infection from cow to humans, and that is a risk. And the human will have the same problem, and person can die. So that is there is a risk of this mad cow disease among farmers who work very close with cows, veterinarians as well. So so that's a problem. Okay, so that's mad cow disease. Another creature that we forgot was the worms. There are two types of worms: Trichinella infection, and also there is a tapeworm infection. Trichinella is these are the worms. They if you eat contaminated, especially the meat products, if undercooked meat products, these worms, the live worms remain there. They are not destroyed, because if it's undercooked, temperature will not maintain. So they remain in the meat, and when people eat this contaminated meat, the live worms are gets into their body, and then they can travel to different organs in the body. They live in the muscles, so person have severe muscle pain. They live in the intestine, so person has abdominal cramps, gas, and all this type of problems. For tapeworms, you see that they can grow like sometimes like 20-30 feet. That's like coil in the intestine. This is pretty bad situation. There are like narrow head, and which is like it's just stuck to the intestine like a leech. It's like like a glue. It's just stuck to the intestine. It's very hard to get rid of. So they grow and grow, and they basically are parasites. So they suck in all your nutrition, all your food, and causes weight loss. Even if the person is eating well, a person does not gain weight. Person does not get nutrition. A person is always weak because of these parasites in the body. So Tinea saginata and Tinea solium, beef and pork are the major contributors, contaminated beef and pork, for these worms. And the treatment is anti-parasitic treatment. Albendazole can kill all these pathogens very easily. So anti-parasitic treatment, and person is fine. Otherwise, person will have anemia, person will have weight loss, and all type of this, especially among children in developing countries. Very common problem. Okay, so that about worms. We talked about mad cow disease. The next one is the chemicals. There are various type of chemicals. Okay, some are mushrooms. Wild mushrooms have toxins. Some fish, seafood can be toxin. Can have a poisonous. So the toxins are chemicals that are released by these creatures, and a person can have various type of problems, such as spinal cord issues, meaning a person can have paralysis, person can have brain issues, things like that, and also sorts of like acute level problems, mostly in many cases, and person even fatality and death can happen, such as box jellyfish. You can one sting and person can die, something like that. So these toxins, these mushrooms and fish, you need to aware about them, especially wild mushrooms and the fish that you don't know, you're not much aware about. Okay, so toxins, and then there are other chemicals that we talked about. Arsenic are used as natural pesticides for in chicken, but arsenic, that it's a heavy metal and accumulated in the body and can cause different types of cancers. Um, and then nutrients, some other chemicals, such as they are intentionally added. So now we are talking about the preservatives. So preservatives are added in the food. They are good things, the increased durability of the food. You know that the food is very much perishable, so it increases the durability, and because of that you have fantastic great food processing system in the US and most developed countries, and food coverage is pretty fast and keeps the cost down, so that poor person can also afford the food very easily because of the food processing is pretty advanced, and because of that, and then that is because of the preservatives. What they do, two things. One is arrest the growth of microbes. Another thing is that they do not let the food broken down, which means that they do not they make sure that the vitamins and essential nutrients remain in the food. They don't go out, and the toxins they don't get in. So toxins are not formed, vitamins remain in the food, they are not gone out, and the microbes are not grown. They do not multiply, they cannot grow. So these type of wonderful things the preservatives do. Okay, so that's why they're important. These are intentional additives. Other thing is accidental additives, where when the food practices are not done correctly, then the food, some of the chemicals are added inadvertently, or by accident, and it can ruin the food or it can make food better. It's 50-50. And the third one is poisonous, with the malicious intents. That's a poisoning intention. So that's no longer. It used to be in the past, in the when there were kingdoms and stuff, and they used to do assassination type stuff and food poisoning type stuff. But for our purposes, we are going to discuss only about intentional, meaning intentional additives that are for the protection of food safety and improving the food quality. Okay, after that we have different laws that you look at those laws. Only one I would like to mention is there was 1958. There was in the 1958 law, there was clause was inserted regarding the preservatives. Is that all these preservatives, even they have a little bit of even like 0.001% chance of causing cancer, do not add those preservatives. That was the ban on preservatives. That ban lasted for like around 40 years. I mean, not all, but like most of the preservatives. And then in 1996, there was Delaney clause was added. The congressman Delaney fought for this, and the name is given. The clause is given on his name, and the ban was lifted. And then the GRAS rule that came out was generally regarded as safe, which means that if over all these 40 years, whatever they had at the time, if the preservatives are being safe, and only like around like 1 in 1 million people have got cancer, not more than that, then you can that preservative will be allowed to be used. So that is referred as generally regarded as safe, as opposed to absolute zero. So it gave some leeway to the preservative industries, and otherwise it would have been a tough situation. Preservative industry was in a tough shape at the time, and you know that how important the preservatives are. So that's about Delaney clause. I'll ask an example. Please take a look at that. And I think that's it. There are employment opportunities in these industries, and you can take a look at that in the slide. And I guess I try to cover as much as possible. In terms of laws, there are pesticide amendments, there is a color amendment, there are preservative amendments and things like that were added into the basic law, food and safety law, as the technology improved. There is a critical control point that we have to see. So there is a system in 1950s that we have in place in the US, hazard critical control points, where from the food food manufacturing, or when from the point of food manufacturing till the point of food distribution at the retail, in that whole journey, there is a system that is maintained where in these different stages where like numerous procedures are there. There is a system according to HCCP, hazard critical control points. um, the stakeholders, the concerned parties, that includes a food processor, that includes a retailer, that includes food grower, there's farmers. All of them have to make sure that all these their individual procedures that they're doing in terms of handling the food. They have to assess the points where the vulnerable points where the pathogens can enter, chemicals can enter, and they have to make some sort of provisions to prevent that from happening. And if that happens, then what corrective actions should be taken. So whole sort of algorithm is developed since 1950s. So make sure that at any point no contamination of food happens from the outside sources at all at any times. So take a look at that. HCCP is very important, and because of that, we have such an excellent food safety pattern here in the U.S. And we don't have mad cow disease and things like that as much as that's in developing countries, the other developed countries, as industrialized countries, as we see in like in Europe or UK and things like that. So that's it for now, and I'll talk to you later, maybe next week, if possible. But I guess we are done with this semester as far as lectures are concerned. And there's a third midterm. I will announce the time, how when you can take it. So after Thanksgiving week, we're going to talk about. You guys are going to take that midterm exam in that window between Friday and Saturday or Sunday, something like that. So I will make an announcement about that. And then there is a final exam that you have to take in by online. Okay, and that's it. It was great to have you all in the class, and you enjoy your time during the Thanksgiving. Make sure that your papers are in a top shape, and I'll look forward to see all your papers on this coming Monday, on November 25th, or in the spring semester, the corresponding time. Thank you, and I wish you all good luck.